1, 2, they're coming for you. 3, 4, gonna post some more. 5, 6, don't lose your shit. 7, 8, haters gonna hate. 9, 10, never post again. Hey everyone, it's T. Welcome back to my channel. So as you may have guessed from the intro as well as this title, we're going to be doing our very first book review. Yay! Hopefully this is the first of many, but to start things out, we're going to be talking about Chris Boute, aka the Rewired Soul, and his latest book, Cancelled. For those of you who are unfamiliar with Chris, he is a YouTuber here and he has a mental health channel. Basically what he does is he takes different YouTubers in different situations that they're in, that they broadcast online, and he looks at that from a mental health slant. This is partially what got Chris into trouble and what got him canceled. For those of you who aren't familiar with what canceling or cancel culture is, basically it's a form of boycotting someone who has done something that people feel is having, say, an unpopular opinion, saying something problematic, or having behaviors that people don't condone. Chris got a lot of flack for several different things. I'm going to link videos in the description below, which kind of has the highlights, videos that I think best sum up the situation. So a lot of people were upset that he was talking trash about drama channels. However, it could be argued that a lot of the content that he makes is like a drama channel, except for with a mental health slant. He was also communicating with these channels in the past, seemingly trying to stir up drama. Some old Islamophobic tweets or Facebook posts were found, I should say. He was also accused of being money hungry and scamming his viewers with his books. He's wrote 3 other books aside from this one. And in addition to that, he also had a course up that was when he originally started the channel, about $20. After he gained popularity, he bumped it up to about $100 and some dollars. But then after he got canceled and people were making expose videos on him, he made the course for free after that. And I believe the courses still are free. But the main criticism that Chris got was that he was essentially diagnosing other YouTubers and putting mental health labels on them and their situations without having spoken to them directly, as well as not having really any credentials as a psychologist. Chris is certified to teach mindfulness, and in addition to that, he is working on getting his addictions counselor certification. So now that we know a little bit about Chris and the situation that happened in the past, let's jump into the book. So basically the point of Cancelled is to talk about Chris's experiences with cancel culture as well as cancel culture as a whole on YouTube. What I really liked about the book is I like the concept and the idea of it. Cancel culture is something that's taking over. It's something that even regular people, not just celebrities, have to be mindful of, because anything that you may say or do can be considered problematic by anyone, and that can be used against you. Sometimes the behaviors that people are canceled for are more extreme than others. So cancel culture is becoming quite the thing online and offline for people. I think it's a cool, well, not cool, but an interesting phenomena to explore, especially on YouTube, when the littlest thing seemingly sometimes can get someone a lot of criticism or a lot of flack, which can eventually lead to a cancellation. So I really like the concept and the idea of it. As far as pricing, the book is pretty affordable, which I do also like. You can get a PDF version of the book for free, or you can get an audiobook for $10 or an ebook for $5. I opted for the free PDF. The other thing that I also enjoyed is the cover art. Content-wise, it was a pretty easy read. There's only a total of 209 pages, so not that bad. I finished the book across 3 days. So it wasn't too long, wasn't too difficult or complicated to read. But that's kind of where what I think is good stops. What I don't like about his book is visually it could be better. I wasn't crazy about the font that he used for it. It kind of looks like a Courier New, but I could be wrong. Something maybe like a Times New Roman or an Arial, or even one of the less popular, prettier font would be good, but that's just a personal preference for me. Other than that, there wasn't anything really visually stimulating either. I mean, yeah, he did include a few screen grabs from YouTube, but other than that, nothing else that's visually stimulating. A lot of books don't have pictures and things like that. A lot of novels or autobiographies, books of this nature, don't have a lot of pictures, but something a little bit more visually stimulating to kind of break up the pages or the sections would have also been welcome. There's also a few spelling and grammar mistakes. Again, not a super big deal. This can happen with self-publishing. Even my novel, which I self-published, may have had like a spelling mistake or two. It's nothing to like panic about, but can make it seem a little bit unprofessional. So I would maybe invest in hiring like another proofreader or having like a friend or family or anything like that. Take a final look as well as yourself to make sure that there's nothing screwy going on. Now, content-wise, there's a lot of bad content in here. I don't like the examples that he used for other creators being canceled. The reason why I didn't like this was because these people still do have careers. They're not really hurt by it, except for one, but I feel like his cancellation or calls for his cancellation were justified, which I'm going to talk about. 3 examples that stuck out to me that he talked about were Katie Morton, Philip DeFranco, and I'm Out. So we'll start with Phil. If you're unfamiliar with Philip DeFranco, he is a YouTuber also, and he basically gives out news. So he's like a news channel. Back in 2018 in October, there was a scandal involving BetterHelp, which is an online therapy service. I used to use this service back in the day, and it was okay. I mean, I didn't have any problems with it. However, BetterHelp came under fire due to some of their terms, and their vetting process didn't seem to be that great. For some people had a lot of bad experiences with that their therapists weren't vetted, and it was really, Joe Schmo from Idaho. I don't know. But BetterHelp came under fire for that. Phil had set himself up and other YouTubers up with sponsorships for themselves through BetterHelp, and he kind of came under fire because of all this. Phil met with the CEO, he addressed everything, he gave statements that everything was legit, but he did end up ending the partnership with them on October 15th of 2018. Now, Phil is still thriving. His channel is still growing. I believe he's expanding and growing still. And even though he did have that scandal, it wasn't enough to end his career or severely damage it. Phil's doing fine. So I feel like using that as an example for cancel culture wasn't exactly the best, because honestly, Phil came out of that still looking pretty good. He didn't really have too much negative repercussions except for, a few people giving him the side eye now. But with a channel as big as he is and the things that he talks about, some people were already doing that to him anyway, so I feel like it didn't really hurt him as much as Chris tried to make it out to be in the book. The other person he used as an example was Katie Morton. So Katie is a psychologist. I believe she specializes in relationships and I think maybe eating disorders as well. Katie came under fire because in Shane Dawson's series The World of Jake Paul, in which they were doing a documentary on Jake Paul, people were upset with her because of how she depicted sociopathy. Now, the way Katie did describe things was a little dicey, but I don't think that was helped by the visuals that were presented as well. So I feel like that was kind of more Shane and his team's fault for how everything was presented rather than what Katie herself had done. People also didn't like how she and Shane lied to Jake in a later episode, just telling Jake that she was a producer and not a psychologist there to kind of observe him and see if he showed any sociopathic or antisocial personality trait. Despite this, Katie's still strong, even though she did have to come out and make a statement about everything that had happened in the series and how she described it. She had to kind of justify herself. But again, she's come out relatively unscathed. Her subscriber base is growing. She's still getting good views. So even though she had that scandal, a little bit of a shakeup, which I feel was more Shane's and his production team's fault, rather than her fault. And even though she doesn't specialize in sociopathy or antisocial personality disorder, she still has some experience in the psychological field. And I feel like, again, the way it was presented was more of Shane and the production team's fault rather than it was her fault. But she's still doing good. And despite the scandal, she was not officially canceled. Even though she had kind of a bad time after this, she came out okay. For the last example I'm going to give about Chris's bad examples of cancel culture is I'm Alex. So for those of you who are also unfamiliar with I'm Alex, he's a commentary channel on YouTube. He basically just kind of talks about different things happening on and off of YouTube, different YouTubers, things like that. What happened with I'm Alex is that there was a girl named Shay who claimed that a YouTuber that I'm Alex was friends with, Slazo, was abusive to her as well as assaulted her when they were teenagers, when they were in a relationship, which was when they were teenagers. Slazo didn't say anything for quite a long time, but I'm Alex took Shay's side without really consulting with Slazo to get his side of the story. He just immediately backed her, and then when Slazo came back to give his receipts and say, hey, I didn't do all of the things she said. However, I was a shitty boyfriend. I was a teenager. Alex kind of doubled down on it, and then he kind of made it seem that he was dating Shay currently while she was still a teenager, instead of this relationship being something that happened while they were teens. And a lot of people were mad at Alex because he doubled down on his stance, even though Slazo was pretty much exonerated and there were no legal charges or anything levied against him or anything like that. But he was pretty much able to clear his name, and I'm Alex doubled down on everything, and he didn't apologize for anything until after the book's release. I feel like Alex's cancellation or attempted cancellation was valid at this time because he didn't talk to Slazo, he doubled down on everything, and Alex does kind of have a history of jumping from friendship group to friendship group or friendship to friendship and then dumping them seemingly when it doesn't benefit him anymore. So I feel like Alex's cancellation was justified, and the way Chris tried to frame it made it seem like it wasn't, kind of skewing things a little bit. Again, Alex has apologized, and it looks like everyone's putting all of this behind them, and Alex is still thriving as well. So even though people came for him, they tried to cancel him, Alex still has a thriving and great career. So I feel like that was also a pretty bad example to describe cancel culture. Other thing I didn't like about the book is that Chris mentioned other YouTubers who people had tried to come for them, tried to cancel them, but they are seemingly unable to be canceled. He mentioned Shane Dawson, Jeffree Star, and Tana Mojo, two of those kind of storytime beauty gurus, very much into the beauty industry or entertainment industry. And then, of course, Shane's kind of YouTube's darling right now. And the problem with going, well, why are these guys not canceled, but they're coming after these guys? I feel like on paper, that makes sense. However, when you kind of really think about it, there's several reasons why these creators haven't been canceled, even though they've done problematic things. With Shane, he was very edgy in his past. People didn't like Shane for a really long time because of his edgier content. It was kind of gross out humor. But I feel like after Shane came out and after he started to, I feel, be his more authentic self, he dropped kind of the edgy, gross humor, and he kind of grew and started to act like himself. That kind of absolved any bad behavior with Shane. Also, you have to look at his numbers. There is a thing of being too big to fail, which I think is a big part of why Jeffree Star and Tana Mojo haven't failed or haven't been canceled, even though people have constantly come for them. If you have a big following, and also if the following is primarily children, of course they're not going to understand how fucked up some of the things you do are. Like, take Logan Paul. He literally filmed a dead body, but he's got all these young fans, and I don't think that they realized the gravity of how fucked up that was. Like, all the adults were like, rah, 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 rah. But, you know, the kids were like, oh, well, what's the big deal? It's a mistake. It's just a dead body. They don't know any better. Who your audience is, if you're showing growth, if you're showing changes like Jeffree Star has. I still don't agree with a lot of things Jeffree Star has done in the past. I don't really support him, but I can see why people have forgiven him and moved past some of his problematic behaviors. As far as Tana Mojo, she's just a train wreck, and that's kind of her brand. She also has a young, impressionable audience, and they're not going to care what she does. They're just going to stan her. I feel like Chris willfully overlooked that when picking examples of people who he feels like are uncancelable. Uncancelable. Now, there is another section of this. So we talked about the good, we talked about the bad. Now let's talk about the ugly. For me, this book could have done so much more than it did. It really doesn't talk too much about cancel culture itself. It just shares Chris's experience, which is perfectly fine, but that makes the book kind of read like a pity party without Chris taking too much responsibility for what happened. He does admit to some things, like being overly sassy with people. He also reached out to drama channels after he pissed off Trisha Paytas after making numerous videos about her and her relationship, although it clearly upset her. And just a general, seemingly willful misunderstanding of why people were upset with him. No one wants to be the villain in their own story. We all feel like we're doing things that we think is right and justifiable, even if people come at us and go, hey, this is not cool. Maybe you should fix or change that. And instead of Chris responding constructively to any kind of criticism of him or his work, he often responds in a pretty condescending manner. Currently, people who are detractors of this book, Chris has often cited their age and lack of life experience as to why they are coming at him. I don't agree. You can be young or old and lack or have more life experience than someone older or younger than you. Like, for instance, with me, some fucked up shit happened to me at 19. And at the same time, since I was around, I guess 17 or 18, I was watching my mom slowly being eaten away by cancer and battling that up until she died a few days before Thanksgiving when I was just 24. So to discount someone as not having enough life experience because of how old they are, I feel it's a little childish, and I feel misses the point. There could be someone who's fucking 35 and who may not know how to write a check, who may not have never had a job, who may not have ever gotten married, had sex. I don't know, you know? I feel like just going, oh, well, you're young and you don't have any life experience. You don't know these people. You don't know their life. So to say that they don't have any life experience to understand the weight of what you're saying, or have the life experience or reasoning skills to read into something that you have said or done, which is negative or can be perceived as negative, is a bit naive. Other thing I want to talk about is Primink. In the book, Chris puts a lot of weight about what happened to him on Primink. He cites 3 other YouTubers as well as being instrumental in his fall, but Primink holds a special place for him in his cancellation. So for those of you who are unaware, what had happened was Primink was the first video that talked negatively about Chris, which levied criticisms of him and his channel, mainly focusing on the course that he was charging hundreds of dollars for, as well as him not having any credentials and putting diagnoses on YouTubers in which he never spoke to. Those were Primink's two main criticisms. He also talked about Chris being manipulative and things like that within his comments and to other people and his viewers. If you want to watch Primink's video, I will link that in the description below just to give you more context. Now, Chris is under the impression that Primink made this video after an exchange that they had on another YouTuber's video, which I will show here. And he thinks that this is why Primink made the video on him and went to ruin his career. Now, on paper, if you think about it, it's understandable that Chris would feel this way. However, I don't think this was exactly Primink's intentions. I don't think he foresaw that something like this would happen, as you will see, because I was able to speak with Primink through DMs. I don't think that this outcome was his intention, and at the time, while I understand why Chris would place a lot of blame on him since his video was kind of what started it all, you have to look at what brought us to this point, which is Chris's behaviors. And the other thing that you have to think about, this was during a time where Chris was very popular. He was gaining lots of popularity. He was generally well favored. So Primink making this video was a risk. People may not have liked it. People may have attacked him. But for it to be the catalyst for other videos, for other creators to come out and say, oh, hey, I noticed this too. Here's my experiences with him. Oh, hey, I noticed this too. This is how I feel about it. Or, hey, I noticed this too. I looked up some things and these are my findings. For it to have that kind of effect, I mean, it just can't come out of thin air. If these criticisms that Primink levied against Chris were invalid, then they wouldn't nearly have had the impact that they had. But anyway, I was able to speak with Primink about some of the things that Chris has said in his book about him, and he was gracious enough to let me talk to him. So I'm going to show the DMs here as well as go over what we talked about. And this was all with Primink's permission. So, of course, I first thanked Primink for his time and for allowing me to ask him questions. And the first thing I asked was, in the book, it looks like he thinks you made the first video about him because of the exchange you guys had in the comments of Repzilla's one video, which I did show. And then I asked him, was he planning on making it before, or is that what sparked it? So Primink responded that he had already been looking at his channel for a while, and his responses to that comment definitely made Primink want to pursue the video more, though, because it showed clear manipulation and he got a better vibe of his character. When I told Primink that it seemed that Chris was under the impression that Primink wanted to ruin him with the video, Primink responded, no, the first video was very lighthearted. I saw a guy doing something that could be dangerous to people's mental health, and I just said my opinions on it. I say this in my videos a lot, but I'm never trying to destroy someone's career or income. I don't even purposely send hate to people I do videos on, but at the same time, I'm aware that some backlash can create change. If someone gets no hate for their bad actions, then they have no incentive to change. I did not want the Rewired Soul to lose 20k subscribers. I just wanted him to stop messing with people's lives. So I did that night, before reaching out to Primink, rewatch the video that he made. And I would have to agree that it didn't seem malicious at all. He just wanted to point out things that he found problematic about Chris. I then went on to ask him, aside from the video he put out refuting your points, did he ever reach out to you to talk about it? To that, Primink responded, nope. The only contact I've had was with him. Was him asking to meet at VidCon, which I later found out was part of his plan to confront me. So in the book, Chris does mention sending Primink a direct message on Twitter asking him to meet up, just to kind of confront him and to talk about what happened. So what I asked stemming from this was, do you think it would have went south if y'all met up? In the book, he seemed pretty angry that you tweeted it out instead of saying no privately. So Primink did, instead of saying no to him, he took a screenshot and then he just tweeted no. And then to that, Primink says, oh, for sure, there would be no reason to meet in person other than him wanting to confront me. He could have just DM'd anything he wanted to say, which I think is a fair point. As a follow-up, I asked if he thinks that after all this, if Chris's content has improved. To that, Primink's responded, "They've improved for a little bit, but I think he's reverted back. I haven't watched any videos in a while, but one I did watch talked about YouTubers being entitled if they ask someone not to talk to them." I personally didn't see that one. I haven't really watched any of Chris's videos since this, except for going back to do research for this review. And of course, I've heard kind of through the grapevine things that he has said. From there, the last thing I asked him is what his thoughts on cancel culture were as a whole. And to that he said, I think most cases it's a very toxic thing, but like I said, if no one had any punishments for their bad actions, then they would have no reason to stop them. Chris is now using the claim that cancel culture is toxic to try and negate all of his bad actions, which I don't think is right. He deserves some form of backlash. I just don't know where we draw the line and it becomes toxic cancel culture. Now, with that being said, I just want to give my overall, overarching opinion on the book. Overall, I give Chris Boute's Canceled a 2.5 out of 5 stars. To piggyback on what Primink said, there is definitely a line that's quite unclear as to what is acceptable and what is not when it comes to canceling someone or boycotting someone, or we do need some form of accountability. However, when is it too much? What price does someone have to pay? What does that person have to do in order to pay that price? When is enough enough? Chris's book could have gone into this instead of just rehashing what happened to him. While it is important for him to share his story, at the same time, I feel like it could have gone above him. It could have been so much more than it just being about him. The subtitle for the book is Inside YouTube Cancel Culture, but there isn't really a lot to be said about the true nature of cancel culture on YouTube. There's not really a lot said about cancel culture in general. Yeah, he says you should take a break if you ever find yourself being canceled. You should apologize. You should kind of be on your best behavior from that point onward. Other than that, there's nothing really of substance there as to what you can do when you are canceled, what you can do to lessen the effects, how you can make things better, what steps can you take to keep yourself from being canceled. No one is perfect, and we all engage in problematic behaviors. We all do and say stupid shit, me included. And I feel like this book could have gone into so much more depth with different YouTubers saying and doing different stupid shit and kind of saying, okay, well, this is how this person handled this situation, and then they came out okay. This is how this person handled this situation, and they did not come out okay. So I feel like something like that would have been better. It would have been a more interesting narrative. So again, I give it 2.5 out of 5 if you're interested in hearing Chris's story, getting his side of everything. Then this book would be good for you. But if you're looking for something that digs a little bit more deeper into cancel culture and how it affects people aside from just this one person, then it's not going to be the book for you. I hope this review has been helpful. I'm sorry if it was a little all over the place and kind of hashing out drama. I don't want to rehash any drama. Mostly everything that I've talked about has already been dead and buried. The horse is dead, Jim. We don't need to repeat it. But since the book revolves and involved a lot of this drama, I feel like it was important to kind of talk about, get it out there. So let me know in the comments what you thought about this review, what you would like me to review next, and of course like and subscribe if you did like the video and want to see more from me. Thank you so much, and I will see you guys next time. Bye, 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 bye.